Okay, so now we come to the topic that you've been dreading, your budget. A budget to many people is like a diet. It takes the fun out of life. It keeps you from doing the things that you really like to do. If that's your experience with a budget, you've not been doing it right. A budget is really an allocation of limited financial resources among various unlimited alternatives for the use of those resources. When you look around yourself, you see all kinds of places where you can spend money. Lots of people wanting to take your money and promising you all kinds of good things if you do. And all of us have limited financial resources. Well, maybe not Bill Gates, but everybody you know has limited financial resources. So all of us face this dilemma of deciding how we're going to use those limited resources, how we're going to spend them, and this is what a budget is. Now, if you are not using not using a planned budget, then you're budgeting anyway. But it's an impromptu budget. It's doing what you want on the impulse. It's an impulsive budget. Somebody says, so let's go for lunch, and you say, sure. So you see something in the store, you say, I want to buy that, and so you make that decision, yes or no, based on the moment, rather than on a comprehensive plan. A budget is that comprehensive plan. It takes a look at what you have, the money you have for the next month or the year. We'll talk about a monthly basis usually, because that's generally how your income comes in. And so you say, okay, this is how much I'm going to have next month. What do I want to do with that money? How can I use that money to get the greatest sense of satisfaction when it's all over? When I look back at the end of the month and see how much money I've spent, what I have left, what I've done with it, I'm going to be happy with what I did with it. If you're doing impulsive budgeting, probably won't work, won't be happy. But if you set up a plan ahead of time, a comprehensive plan looking at all the things you want to do with your money, you have a far better chance of coming out happy in the end. So what are the steps in setting a budget? First, you need to know how you're spending your money now. If you were to sit down with a piece of paper and off the top of your head try to list all the things you spent money on, how much money you spend on each of those things in the last month, probably you'd come up short. You would not be able to find all of the money that you've spent. There's a lot of slippage in our spending. We just don't realize where the money is going. So keep a record of every cent you spend for a month. Write down every nickel and keep a record of it. Then at the end of the month, look at it and categorize it. How much was rent and groceries? Those are the big things, easy things, loan payments, car payments, those kinds of things. But how much did you spend on the Slurpees, on the lunches, on the bus transit passes, on gas, if you have a car, whatever? How much you spend on all those things? And until you know that, you can't really go to the next step. The next step is determine your priorities. Are you spending your money on the things that you need and that give you the most gratification? So when you look at how much you spent this last month, where you spent it, you say, is that really where I would have liked to have spent it? Are those the things that I got the most satisfaction from? Are there other things that I'd like to use some of that money for? And I could easily have given up some of these things that I impulsively spent money on in order to get those things that I would have enjoyed more. Third step is to plan your expenditures based on your priorities. So you look now at the next month saying, this is how much money I got, these are my priorities, this is how I want to allocate it. So determine how much money you have available and allocate your priorities based on your priorities, based on the money you have available. Number 4, you keep your spending within your plan. This means that you have to track your spending and not exceed the amount that's allocated. You have to know at all times how much you have spent in each category and how much you had available in that category, how much you have left. And if you don't have that information, you can't make good decisions. And if you do have that information at hand, you have to make the decisions based on that plan, and don't impulsively spend beyond what your plan was. And number 5, you have to revise the budget as appropriate, because surprises happen. And you'll have unexpected costs, or something will come up that you hadn't provided for. So your budget has got to be flexible in order for it to be workable. So those are the steps in setting a budget. Find out how you're spending your money now. Determine what your priorities are. Determine how you want to spend your money, but determine what your category, if each of those categories, what you want to spend on those. Then stay within the plan, and then going forward to the future months, revise the plan as necessary. If you have ever set a budget, you've probably sat down, wrote some numbers on a paper, put the paper in a drawer, and 6 months later wondered why it didn't work. Why do budgets fail? A number of people write up budgets, but very few of them actually work. Budgets fail for a number of reasons. One is failure of a commitment to make them work. Writing the numbers on a paper is not the end of the program. It's not the solution. It's not the answer. You've got to be committed to make it work. As I said previously, you've got to be aware of how much you've spent, how much you have left to spend, and stay within it. Be disciplined. You've got to be committed to that. Budgets also fail because of a lack of assigned accountability. If you're married and you got a budget and it says you're going to spend $100 this month on little things that don't really matter, is that $100 each, or is that $100 between the two of you? If you decide you're going to spend $300 on groceries, who's buying the groceries? Make sure that you don't both go and try to spend the same dollar. And so if you're married, you've got to have assigned accountability. You know who's spending what money, who's responsible for which part of the budget. You have to have immediate feedback. Your budget will not work if you don't know all the time how much money you have left to spend in each of the categories in your budget. You don't know that information, you cannot make good decisions. The budget is a waste of time. You've also got to have consistent self-discipline. If you're not disciplined to stay within the budget, to stop spending when you've spent what you'd planned to spend, then the budget will not work. So it's consistent self-discipline is critical. You got to have strict credit limits. If you're not, if you're going to use credit card for certain purchases, you need to either expense them at the time when you make the purchase, so they're allocated in that month, or you have in the next month you have you know how much you're going to spend on credit card, and the next month you've got the credit payments in that budget. So set strict credit limits, use it carefully. And flexibility, as I said earlier, things do change. It's been said that the average man has had unusual expenses in every month of his life, but he doesn't expect any next month. And that kind of planning will get you into trouble. Okay, next we'll look at a template that'll help you to actually put this to work.